Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kareemah Baker. Really looking forward to our conversation, Kareemah. We had such a great chat last time we spoke, and I know from what we've done there, it's kind of a real meeting of hearts here, and I find that really touching. So it's going to be a great chat.
Thank you for having me, Simon.
So Kareemah's got is it kind of a dream job for you? I mean, yeah, she's an adoptee, and you're an adoption professional, overseeing adoption and other parts of child welfare at New Jersey's Department for Children and Families. Is it a dream job? I guess.
It is. It is for me. It's absolutely full circle for me as someone who's experienced adoption through the actual agency that I'm working with, and now to oversee the work is yeah, certainly a full circle moment for me.
Yeah,
It's been therapeutic in a way where I'm able to kind of reconcile what my personal experience was with the professional experience and different policies and things. So it's been an amazing ride. My career has been an amazing ride,
yeah,
certainly.
yeah. Amazing. So, what does thriving mean to you, Karima?
That's a full question. It's a full
Yeah,
question. Yeah, and thinking about the word itself, I think thriving is doing and being well, even beyond surviving, right? Not just simply existing or maintaining status quo, but being exceptional, succeeding, being full, whether that's physically, personally, spiritually, being whole. I think to thrive means you do well in excess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Because before we before I hit record, you said that your purpose is to help people be well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. When I think of purpose, so for me, my own mantra, my constitution is to help children and families be well, regardless of my title or my role or where I stand in any organization or professionally. That's what I believe that I'm on this earth to do. So regardless of where I am, I believe that I can do that well,
Yeah,
and I'm committed to that. That's the passion behind the work,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Hmm.
When did you realize that?
It took a while. I want to say maybe in my 30s or so.
Yeah,
Yeah, once I became a little more settled and comfortable in who I was, more comfortable in blocking out the noise and opinions of other people. Um, Once I stopped repeating the narrative that I believe to be true behind um, my upbringing or my adoption story, because I feel like trauma sometimes can stop you from thinking in the fullness of who you are. So I think once I did my own work to become better, to become more confident in myself, that's when I realized, this is my purpose, and this is what I do well, and I can do it well,
yeah,
regardless of where I am.
yeah. No matter
Yeah,
what. Yeah,
no matter what.
no
Yep.
matter what. So, you've talked about fullness, and you've also talked about wholeness. Are they kind of one and the same for you? Are they different? What do those words mean for you, Dreamer?
Wholeness for me simply means complete or desire to be, because no one's perfect, right? We're always healing, we're always learning, we're always growing, but there's a contentment that I believe comes with being whole. There's a confidence that comes with um, being whole. Despite what's going on around you, there's a a certainty or a confidence in how you exist in the world when you're whole, and that takes work,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of those things contribute to a person feeling whole in their existence. And you don't just get there, that comes over time and having different life
Yeah.
experiences, possibly different, relationships and things, engagement with people and others. It's difficult, in my opinion, to become whole um, without being in relationship with other
Yeah.
people, right? Because then that's kind of like an isolated being, and you don't really know how to show up in different situations. So I
Yeah.
think wholeness requires a level of interaction with other people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, to become confident in who you are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was telling Kareemah, listeners that before hit record that I was at an adoption conference last week, and somebody talked about resilience being a group thing.
Mm,
So
mm,
resilience isn't. Resilience is when we're in is something that we share rather
mm,
than it being an isolated experience.
mm, I can see both. Um, Resilience in being a group um, situation or group idea, right? Because to be resilient, my definition of resilience is being able to get what you need regardless of the situation, right? So even if you don't get it in a traditional sense, you have the skills or tools to connect with someone or something that provides you what you need. And that requires interaction with someone else, right? That's not isolated. But I think there are certain people or individuals who may have the skill of resilience itself. And I think resilience, to the point we made earlier, comes with engagement with other people
Yeah,
and experiences. I don't think you can become resilient on your own. It
no,
requires interaction with
no,
someone else or something else.
no,
Yeah.
no. I was listening to a book this morning, uh, and something came to mind. It's a quote from a trauma expert guy called Peter Levine. Have you come across that guy, Peter Levine? No.
No.
So he's a bit like Bessel van der Kolk, right?
Hmm.
So he's into this kind of
Hmm.
somatic work of healing. And one of the quotes that I've seen from Peter Levine, I've read a couple of his books. Uh, Trauma is a fact of life,
Hmm.
but it's not a life sentence.
Hmm.
It's not a life sentence. And I was thinking about what is it that frees us from the life sentence, and I was thinking along the kind of the prison metaphor, like and thinking of solitary confinement
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how damaging that is
Right.
for
Right.
people. Like
Hmm.
this, the solitary confinement. It may not be it may not be in jail, right? But it may be solitary confinement. You're in your bedroom. You're shut away from the world,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
solitary, and we can spiral down compared
Hmm.
to what you're talking about as being in relation
Yeah.
with others.
Yeah. We weren't created to be alone, right? We are created to engage one another, to have relationship, to learn from one another, right? That's what creates the experiences. Um, so yeah, nothing happens in isolation. To your point of trauma, I think trauma can prevent a person from thriving, excuse me, because there are these narratives, right, that folks may consistently tell themselves that limits how we're able to think, right, or how we believe certain experiences happen. So I think having the mindset to learn always, to be open to learn from other people and their experiences. That's wisdom, right? Preventing you from
Yeah.
having, additional or poor experiences. When you learn from the experiences from others, that's wisdom. And then a spirit of gratitude, being grateful, because there's always a worse situation. All of us have stories, but
Yeah.
someone's story can be worse off than yours. So I think
Yeah.
leaving space to learn from other people, and also to be grateful, because there's always something we can tap into to express gratitude for.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the, you were talking about narratives, and you were talking about it from our own internal narrative
Mm-hmm.
perspective, an internal narrative,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was struck me as interesting because often within the adoptee community, we talk about other people's narratives
Mm-hmm.
rather than our own, and we have a desire to change that
Mm-hmm.
narrative,
Mm-hmm.
not least for our trauma to be recognized, because it hasn't been recognized for
Mm-hmm.
very long. I mean, so in terms of Nancy Verrier putting a name to it, and
Mm-hmm.
the Primal Wound back in, and publishing the book back in 1993. So that's only what, 34 years,
Yeah, fairly recent.
fairly
Mm-hmm.
recent for the external narrative started to recognize the stuff for us. But you were talking about internal narrative. So how do you how do you see that internal versus external narrative for adoptees? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think, well, historically, we know, right, that the perspective that has been shared in child welfare systems, um, other systems, et cetera, have been from the perspective of those who maybe create the policies and guides to move the work forward, from adoptive parents more so than the adoptees themselves. But more recently, we've seen an increase in hearing perspectives from those with lived experience, being the
Yeah,
children directly impacted, right? Because I know for me, historically, the story has always been, you were adopted, you had a great family, be grateful, which I am. I'm certainly grateful, but um, everything isn't rainbows and butterflies in the experience itself from someone who's gone through it. So I think tapping into, and as an adoptee, I think as a child, I can only share my experience. It wasn't always encouraged to speak about how you feel, or asked, well, Kareemah, how do you feel about this situation happening? What do you think should happen? So I think as I've gotten older and developed and become more comfortable in having a voice, I tap into my experience and how I'm feeling a lot. And and I don't allow it to be muffled at this point in my life. So, my experience, I think every experience is valid, but I've learned to amplify my own experience as well, and
yeah,
to put truth to power in what I believe to have occurred. And
yeah,
that's powerful, because I'm the one existing. You as an individual, you're responsible for how you show up in your own personal life and how you have different experiences. So, in consideration of other experiences, but I amplify my own as well.
yeah, yeah. Whenever we get near the gratitude topic, and we often revisit this on the podcast. I see this distinction between kind of our internal spontaneous gratitude, right? That comes from within, rather than this confidence that, than this gratitude that's kind of forced on us or suggested from other people,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to be two completely different things. And one of my concerns is that as adoptees, we can become we can we can be less grateful about other stuff because in a way we've become allergic to gratitude because there's been so much. You
Mm-hmm.
should be grateful for this, so that
Mm-hmm.
we become allergic to gratitude in other areas
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
of our lives. How
Mm-hmm.
do you see that, Karima?
Yeah, but I think that speaks to how trauma can negatively impact the way in which we thrive, right? Or choose to be grateful. Um, I think when we think of gratitude in terms of if we remove our situation of adoption, right, from this, so when we think of the fact that we have breath in our bodies, we're alive, we're somewhat healthy, we have food, right, to eat, we have shelter, we have relationship with other people, those things are certainly things to be
Yeah.
grateful for.
Oh,
And I think leaving room for gratitude always opens the door for more, right? Energy. I mean, when we practice gratitude, we make space to receive whatever God has in store for us moving
yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
So I think when we speak of um, trauma, right? And the trauma of being forced to be grateful for our family or being
Yeah.
forced to be adopted by someone, that narrative then can then consume us and prevent us from thinking of all of the other things that there are to be grateful for.
Yeah. So are you saying really then that trauma's choosing for us?
Yes. Yes, we're allowing the trauma to choose for us or to create the narrative around our
Yeah.
existence or ability to thrive versus not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you remember seeing that? Do you remember when you saw that for the first time?
Well, thriving as a choice.
Thriving as a choice, or the fact that trauma's choosing? Either
Yeah,
or both.
yeah, probably. I can a profound point in my life was when I had my daughter, actually, and fear and hesitation prior to ever having the experience of motherhood. I can speak to that. Like I really didn't. I had an amazing adoptive mom. I only had her for a short time because she passed while I was
Yeah.
young. But I had this like oh, the feet I would ruminate on how I would fail at motherhood because I didn't have a solid example for a long period of
Yeah.
time what I thought motherhood should be, and it was a real fear of mine. And then when I had my daughter, I realized that it all came from well, it was rooted in my beginning story and the fact that I hadn't had the example, and it crushed me in a way, thinking that I wouldn't be successful in mothering um, my daughter. So through work, I realized that, and I realized that me telling myself that for many years um, created this non-existing story of I don't have the ability to be a good mom because I didn't have the example. Um, yeah, but I had my daughter, and it's amazing to I couldn't imagine my life without my daughter now, and to parent her with such intention despite not
Yeah.
having what I thought
Yeah.
would have been a great foundation.
Yeah.
So
So your daughter changed that internal narrative.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I think as adoptees we have different experiences that change our narrative and how we believe um, we exist. For some it's motherhood, for some it's marriage, for others it's partnership. It can vary depending on, but I think different experiences certainly change the narrative that we tell
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. So what's striking me is there's that the internal narrative that we're broken, or that there's something wrong with us, and then seeing through that narrative like you did, that
Mm-hmm.
or the experience helped
Mm-hmm.
you see through that narrative. You didn't. This wasn't like an affirmation thing, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
guessing you didn't.
Right.
You didn't write on your mirror in the with lipstick. I must see through this narrative, right?
Right.
The
Right.
narrative was changed for you.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Did God did God have a hand in that changing the narrative for you
Absolutely. God
with your
has a hand
daughter?
in everything. God has a hand in everything. Yeah.
So what? Um, how much do you think that internal narrative was shaped by the external narrative?
Hmm. How do I think the internal narrative was shaped by the external narrative? That's an interesting question, Simon.
Yeah,
Because I think both played a role,
yeah.
right? Just externally in believing that I needed the example in order to be well, and not trusting that I
Ah,
had the tools to make it happen.
ah. Wow.
Yeah. But internally
Oh,
trusting myself to make it happen. And it
I've got
actually
goosebumps all over, Kareemah.
yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. So I'm gonna just say that back to you in a different way.
Mhm.
So the shift in your narrative was realizing happened when you realized that despite the fact you didn't have the external role model, that you could be a great mum despite
Mhm.
that. Is kind of that
Mhm.
what it was about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there were other examples. So
Yeah.
even when we speak of resiliency and tapping into the resources that you need, despite not having them in the traditional sense, they were wonderful. I had amazing women around me who served as role models. I had amazing mentors who poured into me. So everything I've ever needed, I've always had. Right. And
Yeah.
we go back to that discussion of God having a hand in everything. Like
Yeah.
everything I've always needed, he's provided.
Yeah.
So I had to trust that moving
That's right.
forward,
Yeah.
even in mothering, that what
Yeah.
we needed, he'd provide.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you were also talking about a more fundamental gratitude.
Mhm.
So um, perhaps upstream, more fundamental, more essential. The fact that we're alive.
Mhm.
What as you said that we're breathing.
Mhm.
When you were talking about that, a, um, a little memory popped into my head of one of my mentors, a guy called Richard Wilkins. He says, "Well, if I wake up in the morning and he'd put his you can see me pushing my elbows out, right? So I'm pushing my elbows. I'm dancing, I'm prepared. Sorry, pretending I'm being a chicken, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he gets up in the morning and he stretches his elbows out, and he said, and if I don't touch wood, as in
Mhm.
I don't touch the wood of the coffin, he knows
Mhm.
it's a good day.
That's right. Mhm.
It's a more fundamental and more essential
Mhm.
gratitude
Mhm.
that's perhaps easier to access, not
Mhm.
accessed as much,
Mhm.
um, but more upstream, more basic, more intrinsic, more closer to who we really are, and a bigger goal, as in it's an easier goal to
To start.
score. Right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And
Yeah,
basic and seemingly basic to us because we have the capability, but not basic to someone else who doesn't, right? So,
beautifully put. Yeah,
yeah.
beautifully put. Beautifully put. So there was a little story that led me to ask you that question about the internal stroke external narrative. And it was from a few years ago. I was down in South Carolina doing some work down there. And somebody mentioned the word broken
Mm-hmm.
in front of a group of people which had uh, some teenage some teenage kids that had been adopted, and then the adoptions had fallen through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it disrupted. It hadn't. Um, but the chap's a great friend of mine, and I love him. Uh, and so I was kind of stunned when he referred to these adopted kids within their earshot as broken.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I was so shocked by that and worried by it really was because if if they if they believe if they believe that broken, they believe that they're broken. If they hear this authority figure talking
Mm-hmm.
about them being broken, then that external narrative may become their
Internal
internal
narrative.
narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's huge. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think of I think of my own stuff and being bullied. This was nothing to do with adoption, but this was actually on a scout camp. So I was 11, the older guy in charge of the tent was 14. Um, and whenever I messed up, and I messed up quite a lot because I'm not the most, I was new to scouts and I'm not the most practical of guys. Whenever I messed up, he said, um, he made me kneel on the grass and say, "I am a worthless piece of," lots of profanity, right? And I had to repeat that back.
Mm-hmm.
And so his external narrative became my internal narrative.
Yeah.
Uh, Later on, I realized that he was just doing, I presume, what his dad or his uncle or somebody else had done
Yeah. Yeah.
to him. But these beliefs that we have about ourselves, the internal narrative, it can be profoundly weakening, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Words matter, right? As simple as a phrase it is. Words matter. Language matters. And um, the term broken is one of the easier words to be internalized. I believe when I think of broken, I think the alternative to that is healed or healing, right? Broken versus healing. When the reality is we all are healing as we navigate life, right? Because it's a journey. But to hear someone say that you are broken, specifically a child who's adopted, you then internalize, oh, I did something to cause this. I'm broken, but I did something to
Yeah,
cause this. And you carry that narrative
yeah,
throughout life, thinking that you're the source of why something may have happened, and then internalizing
yeah,
as a result, I'm broken.
yeah,
So, language absolutely matters. How we convey things to other people matters.
yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, when I was asking you about you defining how you define thriving, one of the words that you used was whole, um, and broken and whole. I mean, they're
Mhm.
they're the
Yeah,
opposites, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm pondering on broken as it's interesting because when we hear broken, we may think of an isolated incident or one situation that may have led to someone believing that they were broken. But then when I think wholeness, I think of journey, right? And a um, collective of things being done to navigate, whether it's therapeutic work, um, journaling, um, relationship, different things that can happen to make someone feel um, whole.
Yeah.
But I think it's personal.
It's
It's
personal.
very
Yeah.
personal.
Profoundly personal.
Hmm.
So did having your daughter help you see your wholeness?
A piece of it. I think that was one page in the
Yeah.
chapter. I think there were many of experiences, right? When I think of having my daughter, when I think of being married, the constitution of married and creating my own family, when I
Yeah.
think of my professional journey, when I think of other relationships, all of those things contribute to the wholeness of my being. There's not one thing or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah. How does your uh, how does your religion, your Christianity, speak or inform your wholeness?
Hmm. I would say my faith.
Your
I
faith.
like to be more on faith
Faith.
than
Yeah. Okay.
religion because I feel a person can religiously do anything, right? That's habit. But faith is by belief and knowing that God, the creator, is in control of all things. So that has grounded me, whether positive experiences, even in challenges, that, he's the author and the finisher, he's all knowing. Um, so that keeps me grounded, knowing that he's going to carry out the
Yeah.
purpose he had for my life
Yeah.
beyond anything that I could do. So just to go back to our earlier discussion about purpose, like that was given to me by God. So he's going
Yeah.
to make sure that that's carried out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you remember when you saw that?
I want to say that was when I was a young, a
Yeah.
young child. Probably, I can tell you profoundly when I had a discussion, I had a conversation with God right after my ninth birthday, and right after my adoptive mom had passed away. And I remember the discussion like it was yesterday. I told God, I said, God, if you provide everything that I need as we navigate life now without my mother being here, you would always be like the source. I would always give you the credit for everything. And then from that point on, different things started happening spiritually that I knew couldn't be other than, God orchestrating it for me and for my life. So I've always felt like I've had favor since I was a little girl. I've always felt like there's been an anointing
Yeah.
on my life that he's been navigating ever since. Yeah.
I've heard this a couple of times recently, and it was that this event, right? This bad event, right? This didn't happen to me. This
Mm-hmm.
happened for
For
me. Yeah.
yes.
So
Hmm.
is that what you're talking about here? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's everything to learn through the journey. I think you were speaking earlier about right having to go through it, the journey and learning through the journey. So there's a beginning, there's an end, but there's the process in between where, in my opinion, most of the learning happens. And the journey can feel uncomfortable, it can hurt, it's uncertain, right? All of those things. But you have to know that the end is coming, the light is coming, and learn all that you can as you pass through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, I think the biggest thing that you're saying is that it's the seeing of that. It's the seeing of that. Um,
Hmm.
the transition
Hmm.
from this happened to me
Hmm.
to this happened
For
for
me.
me.
Yeah.
Why on earth is this happening to me
Hmm.
is a kind of expression of frustration.
Yeah. That's the question,
That's the question.
right? But this happening for me is the learning.
Is the learning? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you saw that at 9 on the
Hmm.
back of obviously these horrific. the horrific event of the
Yeah.
loss of your adoptive mum.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been able to share that experience with other young people who have lost parents who may not have seen the light or saw that, you can get through this. You can still become a productive individual in society despite having this type of experience. Even as someone being an adoptee, right, and navigating
Yeah,
um, care and things that you still can
do.
grow and do well in life
Yeah,
despite having these circumstances.
yeah. And how does that land for them? Presumably, it lands differently for different people. But can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, it's certainly received. I can't say that I've seen the outcome of
No.
all of those experiences that I've been able to share, but it's often been received well.
Yeah,
And for me, that when I think of, it's interesting, I think of mentorship, and I've been blessed to have long-standing relationships with people who served as mentors for me. But for me, mentorship is placing a seed or a word at any
yeah,
point with someone that can encourage them to get to the next
yeah.
phase. Like even in passing, right? So some relationships for me have been, and these people probably don't even know they served as mentors because they were in passing, but they gave me a good word
Mm.
that kind of watered my flower and kept me going. You know what I mean? So
Mhm. And you're continuing that. I'm smiling because I was thinking of the metaphor of sowing seeds
mm,
about 2 seconds before you
wow,
said seed.
wow. Yeah, yeah.
And we don't see the as you're so right, we don't see um, the flowering
Mm-hmm,
of each of the seeds that we
mm-hmm,
sow.
mm-hmm,
Um, we don't know the impact we've had,
mm-hmm,
and something as simple as this
mm-hmm,
podcast, right? So
mm-hmm,
I started off thinking we were doing the podcast for I was doing the podcast for the listeners. Then I
mm-hmm,
realized that I was actually doing it for the guests as well as the listeners. Uh, and then a couple of months ago, I realized because somebody told me, and it was an adoptive mum who had shared her interview with her daughter, uh, who's in her 30s, and Gesundheit, bless you. Um,
thank you.
the something had really landed for her daughter, and I realized, oh, we're not just doing this for the listeners. We're not just doing it for the guests. We're doing it for the guests'
Mm-hmm,
families as well.
mm-hmm,
But I would have never have known that if that guest hadn't,
yeah.
passed the message on to me
Mm-hmm,
from my daughter.
mm-hmm.
So people never know.
You never know. Yeah. And that's an example of thriving, Simon, right? Your podcast itself, you started with one intention, but it's grown now to impact beyond what you foresaw it impacting. That's an example of
Yeah,
thriving for me.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to that choice thing. So the same mentor that said, if I can't feel the coffin when I wake up, it's a good day. He also talked about a choice, and what we focus on gets bigger. So the whole idea of the podcast focusing on thriving is to focus on what we want to get
Mm-hmm.
bigger. We want
Mm-hmm.
we want the more we want more thriving,
Yeah.
more healing.
Mm-hmm.
You've described. healing as a journey. What have been clearly the birth of your daughter? Well, going back a while, clearly that moment on uh, on your ninth birthday,
Mhm.
that was a big significant moment.
Mhm.
You had your daughter in your 30s. Were you 34 or something? Do you
Yeah,
remember? Yeah,
yeah, I was 30, 35 when I had my
35. Sorry.
daughter.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. What other what other significant points have there been on your healing journey, and what was going on for you? What were your realizations on those in those moments?
Yeah, there were so many points on my healing journey that contributed to my change in mind frame and how I see different experiences. Um, I would say another one is even currently navigating a health situation, right? And this is physically, spiritually, all of those things. I think um, at this point, realizing the need to rest and take a step back. We were talking about that a little earlier, how I know that a survival mechanism for me has been ambition, right? So for some, we think of ambition as a positive quality. If someone's ambitious, they're a go getter, they got grit, they're going to keep going, all of those things. But for me to come to the point where I realize that my ambition has helped me to survive and helped me to um, escape, if you will. Now having to sit in stillness, right, for the purpose of my physical body healing has been profound for me. One, because I function well in going. I am a problem solver. I find solutions. This is what I do. So now having to be still and to stillness is hard. Stillness is hard. And I'm realizing that busy doesn't necessarily mean productive. And that most learning, real learning, happens in stillness because you have the opportunity to hear, you can reflect, you can ask questions, you can consider, reconsider all of those things in stillness. You can't hear when you're constantly on go. So this has been profound for me and something that I've never done with such intention in my life. In my 43 years of being, I've never intentionally sat still. It would be, take 2 days here, 3 days here, maybe a week of vacation. But even in that, I was going or doing something else. This is the first time, probably, I want to say in my life where I've been still to hear and reflect and to know how I need to show up differently once I recover.
Yeah. So the physical healing is driving the emotional healing, is it? Is that
The physical, yeah, the emotional and the spiritual healing.
spiritual?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
What what when you talk about spiritual healing, what does your faith tell you about wholeness?
Mm. Interesting. Well, God is whole, right? That my faith certainly tells me that, and that through His Son, right? Through my faith in His Son, that I am whole.
Yeah,
Through my faith makes me whole.
yeah.
Um,
Does your faith make you whole, or does your faith help you see your wholeness? Is there a difference? Am I splitting hairs? I don't know. How do you see it?
that's an interesting. question. And I think two things can be true depending on, who you're speaking to. For me,
Yeah,
my faith makes me whole.
yeah.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking about prayer and peace and stillness and seeing our wholeness.
Hmm.
And I'm also thinking, like, as I was telling Kareemah before we hit record, listeners, that the adoption conference that I went to last week happened to be at Leeds University, and those Leeds University buildings were actually a school beforehand, and it was a school that I went to, and it included a chapel, right? This campus included a chapel, um, and the chapel's now been converted into something else. Right? But I thought about me going to chapel as a kid. I didn't I didn't find a lot of peace or stillness there. I wasn't a believer, and
Hmm.
yet, as you were talking about sitting in stillness
Hmm.
because of because of the health stuff, I thought, well, maybe that's it. Maybe the peace helps us see our wholeness.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because in stillness, you have the opportunity to um, reflect without noise, without
Reflect without
outside,
noise. Yeah,
without noise,
reflect.
without outside perspective, without those other narratives.
Yeah,
Hmm.
without our maybe the external narrative is switched off, and
Hmm.
maybe the internal narrative is dialed down a little bit. Maybe it's a bit
Hmm.
quieter. The
Hmm.
voice in our head,
Hmm.
perhaps it's slightly less, fewer decibels than it was before.
Yeah. 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 I think one word we hear in our faith. I don't know why. I'm thinking of the word shalom, and
Yeah,
shalom meaning peace, stillness, wholeness, all of the things that you just mentioned. Um, but all of that comes in stillness and being able to be retrospective, reflective. Yeah, you really can't do it in the chaos of everyday
yeah,
experiences. You have
yeah,
to retreat in order to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's why we go on retreats.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. But even if it's informally
Yeah,
with yourself, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's going within.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's going within.
Yeah,
It's resting in peace.
that's it. Hmm.
But
That's
but we're not talking about rest in peace and
no, not in death, but
not in
in
death.
life, right?
Yeah,
In life, yeah, yeah. But when we think of thriving, I think finding a place for that stillness and that rest is it's important.
yeah.
It's important. Thriving, when you hear thrive, you may think rigor and go and
Go, go,
fast
go.
pace.
Yeah,
No, but there's also a stillness in thriving.
yeah.
Hmm.
And we can be in full flow, but in but with quiet, right?
Hmm.
Without a lot of our mind. You know, like when
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
in the zone,
Hmm.
in the zone, we are maybe go, 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 but
Hmm.
not a lot going on in our in our head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something that I've not asked you about that you'd like to mention, Kareemah?
No, not necessarily that you haven't asked me. Um, no, my desire is for everyone to thrive, for everyone to find a space where um, they feel whole, that they can show up
Yeah,
in their full being,
yeah,
um, and honor the stillness that comes. Honor um, every experience, every emotion, um, and honor that life is a journey, right? We don't have a handbook teaching us how to get it done. And we have some tools that equip us to navigate a little more easily, but to be gracious with ourselves and that we all have the opportunity to thrive despite our circumstances.
that feels a great place to bring it in. Thanks, Kareemah.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, listeners. We will speak to you again very soon. Take care. Bye.